This is a follow-up video looking at the detours that were set up for the resurfacing of the principal shared path alongside the Graham Farmer Freeway in Belmont. Before we look at Belmont, let's rewind back to March and have a look at the detour signage that was put in place for a similar PSP resurfacing project in Leederville. The people who managed the Leederville project generally did a very good job of clearly marking the detour in both directions. This isn't the entire detour or all of the signage, but I just wanted to show that 12 signs were installed on this section, and in many cases, when you reached one sign, you could see the next sign up ahead. Furthermore, the Leederville project produced a good map, and this was printed on metal signs, and the maps were put up in multiple locations around the detour route. The Leederville project should serve as a model or case study of how to set up cycling detours properly. I'd give the Leederville project and the Belmont project a rating of A for the end result of path, smoothness and quality, but the Leederville project gets a B+ for the detour signage, whilst Belmont scores an F. If I was a main roads manager looking after this subject area, I'd be really concerned about the massive difference in quality and consistency and looking into what's going wrong with some of these projects. Why can't they get it right every single time? We'll start with the Belmont footage at the variable message signs that were put in place for Phase 1. Plenty of variable message signs were used for this project, and they were well placed and easy to read. The first VMS had a message for cyclists, and the second had a message for boat ramp users. The next signs were set up at the worksite itself. Notice there are no maps anywhere. In this instance, I couldn't use the signposted route because the core samples were being taken. Well, no problem. We'll just backtrack and do a bit of curb jumping to get into the car park. Once in the car park, I couldn't see any wayfinding signage directing me to use the detour footpath around the river. I've ridden on that path several times before, so I knew where it was and where it went. However, you can't assume that the detour users have that sort of knowledge and experience. If I didn't know about the path, I would have been completely lost at this point. No maps, no signs, no idea where to go. If it was up to me, I would have put a sign where the path joined the car park, and I also would have put a map next to it. I would have put up another sign at this corner to reassure people they were going in the right direction. A right turn sign was definitely needed at this intersection to let people know this is the turning point. This is not an obvious path to use for a cyclist detour, especially when you get to the top of the hill and find yourself in a grassy playground. I would have put up another sign telling cyclists to cross the grass and use this path, and then another sign at the gate to tell them to go around it on the wood chips. Another sign was required where the path exited onto the road, and yet another sign at the next intersection. If you spotted any signs or maps on that route, feel free to say so in the comments. Well, let's have a look at the Stage 2 detour. This started at the eastern end of the Windan Bridge. I have no idea why this detour was set up to go the long way around Optus Stadium. It would have been much quicker and easier to take the northern route. We'll start where the PSP was closed off. After going under the Windan Bridge, I would have told cyclists to turn left at this first intersection. Instead, we were told to go straight ahead. I would have moved that straight ahead sign back a bit so that it was positioned before the intersection and not after it. It's then some distance to the next sign. If this was the Leederville project, there would have been 2 or 3 signs in between this sign and the last one. Similarly, it's a long way to the next turn left sign. Some more intermediate signs would have been reassuring. There was no sign at the top of the path pointing where to go next. I had to look around to spot one way off in the distance. From that point, there was no more signage until I reached the railway station, and the first sign that I saw had its back to me. I eventually found another sign. It was obscured behind a rubbish bin. After that, there were no signs directing me to use the overbridge. I think whoever planned this route assumed that every cyclist has an encyclopedic knowledge of the paths and bridges around Optus Stadium. There were a few signs on the far side of the overbridge, and that was it. So, to recap, there were no maps anywhere. The Stage 1 detour had next to no signage anywhere either. The Stage 2 detour took the longest possible route and used the smallest possible amount of signage. It would have been better to have used the shorter route with double or triple the number of signs that were deployed. I don't know if anyone reconnoitred these detours on a bike before the signage plans were drawn up, or if anyone did a test ride after the signage was set up. I doubt I would have needed to make this video if adequate and pertinent testing had been carried out. And that's it. Thanks for watching.